The U.S. men's national team September camp is over. What started with a very odd roster, which, by the way, it's still considered very odd. It was a bizarre roster, ended with one loss and one win. The United States lost the first game to South Korea 2-0 and then bounced back by defeating Japan also 2-0. It was a very weird camp with a lot of ups and a lot of downs. It's hard to know how we feel about it. I mean, we're happy for the win, but the performances were weird. It's just a very odd feeling. I guess the positive is we don't feel any worse and we can celebrate the win and learn from the loss. Which players had their stocks go up? Which players had their stocks go down? Is Mauricio Pochettino starting to figure things out? Let's talk about it. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today, as always, after a US men's national team camp, we have the camp recap with Adam, USMNT Stan on X, where we go through the stocks up and stocks down, essentially two players that had their stocks go up and two players that had their stocks go down. One big positive this camp, one big negative, and then we rate the camp from 1 to 5, with 5 being average. Let us know your rating in the comment section down below. One big positive, one big negative, and which players had their stocks go up, which players had their stocks go down. And don't forget to drop a like in this video if you haven't already. I will not be asking while our guest is here because I have manners. Why would I do that? Why would I interrupt Adam to ask you to hit the like button if you can do it right now? It takes 1 second. All right, let's roll the intro and let's start the episode. Okay, another camp recap. And Adam, before I even ask how you're doing and everything, this is an interesting one because this camp feels very weird. Very often we have camps like, for example, the Jamaica one for Pochettino that was very positive and encouraging. And then we usually have camps that are a complete disaster where it's super negative. This might be the most balanced one where there are positives to talk about finally. There also are a lot of negatives. It just feels very weird. Even thinking about this camp last night, after I finished the 7 Things We Learned video, I was just trying to understand, was it mostly positive, mostly negative? And I couldn't really find a direction to take it. There are some comments from Pochettino that I'll give it to you that he gave at the pregame, where he implied that the next camp, he's not going to bring many MLS guys. He literally said it. And then he mentioned by name Tillman, Pepe, and McKennie, for example, that they will be there if they're healthy. And so I don't know how to feel about this camp. It's very confusing. So we're going to talk about stocks up, stocks down, positive rate. And maybe by the end of this video, we have a better picture of it.
I'll just say this. I don't want to give away my, at the end, I think we'll say whether or not we think the camp was a positive and rate it. But, I just want to give some context as to like why this is so weird, right? It's like, if you're, if you're in the middle of anything and there's a long-term plan, right? Whether that's going to be a good long-term plan or a bad long-term plan, it's really hard unless you're like, know what the long-term vision is. And you're just like looking, where are you guys going? And it's like, I don't like where we're at right now. This seems weird. And so it's like, if there is a long-term plan that's like coherent and competent, and all this stuff that we're kind of hearing rumblings of, all this was just test stuff and that's real and tinkering. And now we're going to start. I'd still have some questions. Like, why are we tinkering with 3-4 camps left before the World Cup? I got questions, but it'll become pretty clear pretty fast. Hopefully starting next camp. If that's real and this is just not what we're going to see moving forward, then hopefully next camp, it's like, oh, okay, maybe that is real. But I don't know. It's weird because we don't know. We don't know if there is a long-term vision, what it is, and how this camp plays into that. So we have to judge what we saw, right? We can't judge a hypothetical long-term plan. We got to judge what we saw.
I think a lot of what you just mentioned has to do with our media not asking proper questions. Are they afraid? Are they incompetent? I don't know, because I follow very closely Brazil and the US. And with Ancelotti, the media in Brazil is like very targeted of what they ask. So it's very clear of what Ancelotti's thinking for Brazil. Like even these games, that's why Brazil lost to Bolivia and there wasn't really an overreaction because everyone understood the context of that game. right? What was going on?
Yeah.
While with the U.S., I do think a lot of the overreaction is lack of information, which usually would come from the media, from good journalists asking the right questions, and Pochettino giving more clarity. Obviously, Pochettino shouldn't open up about everything him and the staff are thinking. He doesn't owe us that, and he also doesn't want to tell that to opponents, like exactly what his plan is. But yeah, in the pregame interview, he kind of implied that the reason he had to bring so many MLS guys is because in October is right before decision day, and then November will be like right after the playoffs or catch some of the playoffs. I don't know the dates exactly of the camp. So it was like his last chance to really see them before like the March camp of next year. So he was giving them a last shot to see them up close. And then October, a lot of the European guys will be back. And so that's why I said even mentioned Pepe, Tillman, and McKennie by name. Like he said that. So that means they're pretty much in that roster as long as they're healthy. But let's talk about this camp because what's to come, we don't know, right? We really don't know. In this camp, we start off with a very bad game against South Korea where we lost 2-0. We started the 4-2-3-1. Later in the game, it switched to a back three, which is what we played against Japan. And it looked better. At the same time, it was when South Korea subbed out Son and some of their guys. So it's hard to know if the back three was working or not. Then we played Japan, that they decided to field all their subs for some reason. They benched everyone, even the goalkeeper, everyone. But the back three looked fairly good, and you can only beat what's in front of you. And the American team beat the Japanese team that was placed in front of them. And we held a clean sheet. So overall, very positive result. 2-0, 2 goals. We created also more chances. We could have even got a third goal. Japan also had theirs. Matt Freese was even the best player in the first half, in my opinion. But overall, it was a bounce back result. Performance, yes, there's some question marks here and there, but the result, there's no doubt that's a bounce back. So, Adam, let's start with the classic stocks up. So you're going to give two players that their stocks moved up. I'm going to give two players. I'm a gentleman, so I'm going to let you go first because you're the guest here. So
I'm going to take the obvious one then. And it's, to me, the biggest positive of the camp as well, which it's not my positive I'm going to name later, but is just I think Ballo stamped his name in ink. And I don't know why this has been a debate since he joined us, really. He's clearly the most talented and best. And
I know why it's been a debate, but yeah, I agree with you. It shouldn't be.
Like, he's just performed at the highest level of our nines, right? Like, yeah, Pepe's had some goals for the national team. He scored in Netherlands, but like that's not that high of a level. Like Ballo has actually performed at a high level. He's proven it. He's now, done it with multiple clubs. And yeah, he's had some ups and downs as a, 22, 23-year-old club striker. But watching him, if you just purely watch his play for club and country, it's just the highest level. And we've known that, right? You and I have said that for, I don't know, how many of these videos have we done? We've said it, for years now together.
2 years at least, yeah.
Probably. But like, I think everybody's starting to get that though, right? And like, even like I've been an advocate for like Sargent getting more opportunity since he's started performing for club, but his opportunity was to win the third spot, right? And so I think some people are kind of, I've had some people in my Twitter comments, like, hey man, Sargent, and I'm like, listen, man, Sargent got another chance to be a part of that third conversation, didn't perform. But Ballo, right, if there is a debate of who's number one, and I know he missed a couple chances that he should actually make. He should have probably had 3 goals in this camp, 4 goals in this camp. But man, he played a game in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and had by far the most chances, looked so alive, was just all over everything that we did well. That's how it felt, at least. So big stock up. He's locked. If he's healthy, he's the lock 9. And honestly, I don't think we need to stop experimenting now. We need to get him in as many games as we can with the guys around him to gel, because he's the guy.
Also, he missed a few chances because with him, we create more chances. His off-the-ball movement, he makes the right runs, he times it correctly, he knows where to position himself. I think that's probably where one of the things that when we talk about Sargent not getting service with the national team, it's funny because against South Korea, when Balogun came on, he got service. But as a center forward, service comes obviously from the wingers, the midfielders. They bring the ball to you. They help create chances, but it also comes from your movement off the ball, and you have to find the spaces. And I think that's where Sargent might have been lacking with the U.S. national team. That's why it kind of seems like Sargent gets no service. But we can't hold Sargent blameless at this point. And I even talked about this in the 7 Things We Learned. We'll talk about Sargent soon. I think for this cycle, he's probably done with Pochettino, Sargent.
I agree.
He's not done with the national team, and still 2030, and he could very well drop 30 goals in the championship, could be in the Premier League in a year. And I'm not for kicking him out of the national team, but I think with Pochettino, unless there's an injury crisis, Sargent is probably out for this World Cup. My first stocks up is an interesting one because he was not in camp.
Love classic.
Classic. And it could be one or another. It could be two players here, but I'm going to give one name, but everyone's going to understand why it could be two players. I thought that if we had a proper 10, Balogun and even Pulisic, they would have had many more chances to score. We weren't really creating much through the middle, and when we did, it was like Pulisic driving inside, right, trying to dribble past, and he did do that. That was one of the goals that Balogun scored, the goal that Balogun scored. So I saw a tweet that I found it very funny and very accurate. Someone tweeted this. They put, I'm sorry if I don't remember who it was because I really wanted to give this guy credit, and I'm sure maybe he's watching the video. He said, everyone's better than Gio Reyna until it's time to be Gio Reyna. And I was just like, you know what? That is true because everyone's always like, this guy's better than Gio. Luna will be better than Gio. And that guy, Tillman, is better than Gio. And then when it's time for them to do it for the national team, Gio Reyna still had the best performances for the national team as a 10, right? And now Gio has a club. He has a club now. Hopefully he's going to start playing this weekend right away, maybe off the bench and slowly get things going. He's been there for like 2 to 3 weeks now. And we did seem to lack a 10. Now, mind you, the 10 position right now is probably Tillman's to lose, in my opinion.
So Tack, I'll add one thing here, right? Like, I'm sure we're going to get into Sargent and stock down or at some point. The way that we've invested minutes into, I think, guys that could have been important players in this cycle is mind-numbing. I'll post on X later. I don't know the exact number, but I'll go find it. How many minutes has Gio Reyna played in an advanced midfield or attacking position for the U.S. since 2022 World Cup? Like, I don't know what that number is, Tack, but it is not much. Because remember,
it might be 3 games.
Remember, a lot of the minutes he got under Greg were in a laid back. Greg had him, pushed back more into like a pivot role.
The entire Copa America was that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe a little bit before. But yeah, anyway, my point is, like, we haven't even seen that much. So I agree, probably Tillman's to lose, but at the same time, and Gio has a lot to prove, but like at the same time, like, are you telling me that if we put Gio Reyna in, give him the Luna minutes this camp, even given where he's at, not playing for club, hasn't played for club for a year, whatever it is, do I think he outperforms Luna? 100%. Like, do I think he actually creates something in that South Korea game where we seem to create nothing? I definitely do. I just want to see him put in his best spot. Can we just, I don't know. And like Sargent, we invested 200 minutes before this camp, right? Like, the guy is uncomfortable with national team. To your point, like, how much more are we investing at this point, with Ballo? Like, I don't know. If we're not playing Ballo, I still would like to see Sargent maybe get a chance, certainly over Aji and Brian. But I don't know. Like, Haji now.
Wouldn't you
go
with
chance. That's the problem.
Balogun, Pepe, Haji Wright, probably. And then maybe
Haji
try
needs a chance.
Or maybe even try 2 up top. You can go way a Pulisic up top. That's an option.
So I'm not going to get too into the Sargent thing, but the Gio thing is like, man, can we just hopefully in the next year invest a little bit into him at his best spot and see what that looks like with the guys around him and get him comfortable and confident? Because to me, like, our ceiling, just one player at that level, comfortable and confident in a good role, it goes up. Like, I don't know, is there any player who raises our ceiling more if he can get integrated well? Like, I don't know if we have another player.
I mean, if Johnny could get the club form, it would help a lot.
And Johnny, like, might be it's those two, though, right? It really is. It's like,
yeah, because Johnny is starting for Atletico Madrid, but for the US, he's looked really bad. And if he can play at that level, that's a massive jump. You're adding an Atletico Madrid play out of nowhere.
Right. And it's like, yeah, and I know we've gone off on a tangent here, but God, if we could get Johnny and Gio to play at the level they possibly could, it's in the tank, right? And I don't know. Hopefully, Poch is seeing that and going, man, can I get that to happen? Because if I do, it really does raise our ceiling. I don't know, 50%. In my opinion, like it's a massive.
it's a big deal if those two can play at the highest level that they can for the national team.
Yep.
So my stock up would be Gio Reyna there because I think that even looking at watching Luna this camp, it was quite evident. Luna can fight for a roster spot. I don't think that's a crazy take. I don't think he's like get him out of here, but it's also a player that I'm not. I'm 100% not comfortable if we start Luna in a World Cup game. Uh, if he comes in late in the game, he'll fight. He can maybe do some. Sometimes he pulls some tricks here and there. But if you need him the full 90 minutes to perform against a very high level opponent, I just don't see it happening. Well, I can see that with Tillman, Gio Reyna, like we talked about. So, Gio, who's your other stocks up? Because you got one more.
Yeah, I had a couple more. I mean, the other one I had was, and I this is a personal stock too. Like my stock on Zendejas was pretty low, and I know he's performed in Liga MX really well. But my stock was low on him for the national team, and I didn't have much of an expectation coming in. And I thought he actually looked useful. Right now, I don't think he's fighting for a starting role. That's just not where I'm at with him. But I think he went from being kind of off the roster for me to being a guy that now is very much in contention for a roster spot. So that's pretty big stock movement, right? For a guy who, a couple months back, a lot of people wasn't even on the radar for some people.
Yeah.
And like, where was he a Gold Cup? That's the other, like, once again, just the puzzling stuff is like.
Oh no, but that was because Club America was playing for a playoff spot in the Club World Cup. So that one I understood.
Was it because of club stuff? But yeah. Just would have been nice though, man, to have some of these guys there if we could have.
Yeah, I thought Zendejas was one of my stocks up too. I have another one, so I'll mention the other one. But Zendejas, yeah, because to me he was kind of like just out of the picture. Has a shot because he is playing well for Club America for at least 12 months. But he looked serviceable, right? I ignored the goal for a second. Outside of the goal, there's something there. Definitely not a starter, but I would say he was out of the picture, and now he's about there with Diego Luna.
Right.
Fighting for a roster spot for the World Cup. He definitely earned a call up for October. We can put it that way. Before this camp, he didn't really have that. My other stocks up, it's another one where it's like a position, so it could be more than one player. But we talked briefly about Johnny, but I don't think Johnny's stock went up. But I think Tanner Tessman's stock might have gone up. I don't know if Pochettino will call him up, but one thing that was quite noticeable this camp was Tyler Adams. If you play him next to a mediocre midfielder like Berhalter or Rodon, and you increase his responsibilities on the ball, you kind of expose one of his weaknesses. He had a lot of bad giveaways, and then it made it almost look like Tyler Adams is not a good player. But I'm watching him play for Bournemouth, and he's playing very well. But Bournemouth has a lot of good players. They understand how to utilize Tyler. And it even looks like at times with Bournemouth that he hides in possession because they have other guys to do it. And then he doesn't get exposed, does great defending. Everything else he does what he does. He's a destroyer in the midfield. So you need someone with quality on the ball next to Tyler. Now, that could be McKennie. That could be Johnny. Honestly, Musa's an upgrade from the two that we mentioned, Berhalter and Roldan. But Tanner Tessman, I watched 2 of his games early on this season so far. Matic left, so he became a starter. And he's been quite good on the ball. Very good passing range, not just short, but long ball. Even when he's under pressure in midfield, he finds a quick pass. Been very effective. He's been one of their best players, and he's been getting a lot of praise, rightfully so, from even, I believe, French media. So Tessman next to Tyler is an interesting mix. Tessman is not as mobile as Tyler Adams, right? But he does quite well on defense through his positioning, a lot of interceptions, but he's really good on the ball. So I think his stock went up maybe more in my mind than anything else, but I think Pochettino will see something like that, and Tessman might get a shot there. I hope he saw it because you did leave Tyler Adams exposed because of who you partnered him with, and that was pretty obvious. I think everyone saw that. That version of Tyler Adams is not the same that we see with Bournemouth, but he usually plays well for the national team. So what happened? Well, you put him to play with Sebastian Berhalter and Roldan, and that's what happened. So that's my stock up, Tanner Tessman. So yours, just to recap, was Zendejas, and who was the first one? Balogun. And mine was Gio Reyna and Tessman. I went with the guys out of camp, but I was out of camp. I was going to also say Zendejas. I think Matt Freese deserves a shout because it seemed like he kind of locked in that starting position until otherwise. He became the number one. He was quite good. Matt Freeze this camp. And then we can move on here to stocks down. So negatives. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Let's reverse it. You go first.
Okay. Can I just go with the obvious one first? We kind of mentioned him already, Josh Sargent. He keeps getting opportunities and things aren't going his way. And yeah, not everything's his fault. It's true. I get it. And I'm a big fan of Sargent. I watch him play for Norwich, and he's quite good in the EFL Championship. Not quite good. He's incredible in the EFL Championship. But he got another opportunity, and we saw Balogun, and you talked about Balogun briefly already. It was pretty damn noticeable how much better Balogun is. Like, there's no doubt in anyone's mind now. And Sargent didn't perform again. And then in the second game, Pochettino didn't give Sargent minutes. Damian Downs came off the bench. And honestly, Damian Downs looked a bit better than Sargent too for the national team. Even Damian Downs in limit. He did waste a good chance, but he was moving better, helping the team create chances. Even Damian Downs looked a bit better. And as I said before, I think his stock went down significantly, especially under Pochettino. And I may not agree with this about like completely discarding Sargent for this cycle, but I don't think Pochettino will call up Sargent this cycle anymore unless there's a massive injury crisis. If you go into Pochettino's head, Balogun's ahead, Pepe's ahead. He mentioned Pepe by name. Ajiman is definitely ahead. I think Haji is ahead. Brian White is probably ahead. So Sargent might be like the 6th or 7th option under Pochettino. He was left out of the Gold Cup, right? It was Pochettino's choice to leave him out of the Gold Cup. Gave him another shot now, probably because Balogun and Pepe were originally out, and then Ajiman was out, and Brian White was out. So all these guys were out, and it seemed like Sargent finally got a chance, didn't deliver. So his stock has to be down.
I think there's a world where Josh Sargent is playing with the national team, and he's more comfortable and playing more like the guy that we see for club. I truly believe that. That is not what's happening, though, right? And it's kind of sad because, like, you know, we chose to bring in strikers this summer that, in my opinion, have 0.000% chance of being on the World Cup, or should, if we want to have any chance of competing. Like, instead, we left off a guy and didn't invest. I think Ajiman, I did it at some point. I think I got like 500 minutes this summer, right? That's double the amount of minutes Josh Sargent has in the last 2.5, almost 3 years. He got just this summer's camp. Like, that's crazy. Like, to get guys to be, and Johnny's in the same fold, right? Johnny he has to have minutes, and he has to be able to find himself in the environment, right? Because it's clearly those guys have it in them, but can you find yourself in that environment? And this is sports, right? Anybody who's played on a team knows this. You could go from in all sports, you go from one team to another. And soccer is one of the most interconnected sports, so I think and basketball too, right? Baseball is a little unique, right? I get up and I do it myself. You know, football is a little more unique. I'm a wide receiver. I can either beat you or I can't. But soccer is so interconnected. How do I connect with the people around me? Basketball is like that too. And, you know, like, I'll just throw out a personal story. I averaged 6 points a game as a basketball player my senior year in high school. And was going on to play college basketball, and everybody in the world thought, that guy's going to be kind of an okay college player or a role player. In my freshman year, because of the guys around me, the coaching staff's confidence in me, the role I was put in, I blew up and had this amazing freshman year and averaged, 20-something points a game. And when I look back on that, that's my big personal experience. It's like, well, what changed? Did I get that much better? And it's like, okay, yeah, I worked hard. I mean, probably got better, but it was all environment, right? And so guys like Sargent and, and Johnny and Gio, right, who we've talked about this, it's like, can Poch invest enough time in those guys? And yeah, maybe Sargent's done, right? But the idea is there. Can you invest enough time in guys to get them comfortable in the environment so they bring out their best selves? And Josh, I agree. It's probably done for this cycle, mainly because Haji needs a chance now. Haji and he are on a pretty similar level, and Haji also hasn't gotten a chance. So he should have a chance to win that third striker role. And that third striker role might be pretty important for us, right? Like, Tack, like, I don't know that those other two are going to be healthy for sure. So, like, it becomes important. And I don't know 100% if Sargent should be done, but I think he is. I agree. And I've been a big Sargent apologist, I know, after being a Sargent hater for years. I've been somebody who the last 6 months have rung the bell of we need to give Sargent more chances. So
Adam, it's U.S. soccer. Whatever opinion you have, you get labeled something, either
right,
an apologist or a hater. It's never like, oh, this is just criticism or fair criticism or fair compliment, right? A fair compliment.
I've had days where I say, I don't think Sargent will thrive in a top league. And people are like, you're crazy. You're a Sargent hater. And I'm like, hey, we need to give Sargent more minutes with the national team. Like that makes
You're an
people like, oh my
apologist.
God, you're an apologist. You Sargent lover. I'm like, man, what a day.
No, it's crazy because there's a portion of Twitter that calls me a MLS hater, right? Straight up hater.
Yeah.
And the other day, not
That's
once,
right.
a few times, I've been called MLS shill, and I was
That's
like, no. Look, one thing's for sure. In terms of like being MLS shill or hater, I'm definitely closer to the hater part. I'm definitely don't see myself as a hater.
I was like, that guy does not follow tack at all. He's just seeing a tweet for the first time.
No, but it was because I complimented MLS. I can't remember what it was, right? Because I think
you were on a string. It was like, check out these MLS shills, and it was like you and 4 other guys, and your comment was just simply like, hey, good job to this guy or something. It really wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, look, if an MLS player plays well, you have to compliment him. Fair is fair. If MLS also does something right,
you know what it was? You were like, oh, nice move by Arfstead and nice ball. It was literally just that. Somebody was like,
there was also when I complimented MLS for signing Son, and also apparently I'm a MLS shill for that because I thought it was a great signing.
It was like you, and then it was like the shills. It was like Tom Bogard.
I was with Tom. I was in the same place as Tom.
Yeah, that's funny.
But so that was my stock down with Sargent. Who's your stock down? Because you're also talking about Sargent.
I'll go quickly with mine. I don't think it'll be a shock, but I think Tim Ream just it's been a continual stock down for me. And I think some people still think, well, what else do we have? And I don't know, maybe he still does have a spot in the World Cup, but like I just keep seeing so many holes in his game. Now listen, if the back three, which I think we're probably going to get into here and talk about pretty soon, if that's a real thing, I actually think that gives Ream more possibility and more cover. But back two, right, the South Korea game, it was like you can't have. He's just too slow. Like if we're going to play the way Poch seems to want to play in that back when we have a back two, when we have 2 center backs, back 4. I think Ream's stock is way down. Now listen, let's see what the back 3 looks like, because that may change the picture here. But after game 1, I put it down tack, and I wanted to just mention his stock's way down for me if we're gonna go with that.
I mean, he's not getting any younger. And my stock down, and this one's not the same as Sargent, because Sargent, as I said, I think he's kind of out of the World Cup picture for Pochettino. This player is not out of the World Cup picture by any means. I just think his stock kind of dropped because people are starting to come to terms with reality when they hyped him a bit too much. And it was Diego Luna, because there were people talking about him becoming possibly a starter, and he's a lock for the World Cup. Right now, his stock is he's most certainly not a starter. That was pretty evident. And in terms of World Cup, he is fighting for a spot. I wouldn't be mad if he made it. I think it's actually probable that he will make it, actually, to the roster. But I think people start to come to terms with reality that, no, you cannot start him in a World Cup game. That's not going to go well. And even if he's on the bench, the odds of him coming in a World Cup is probably low. So Diego Luna's stock definitely dropped. Nothing like Sargent. I still think he's very much in the picture, very much. But it dropped for sure. Last one for you?
Yeah, so I think Luna was my second. I had another one loaded because I figured we would both run into this at some point. I'll just say that my quick comment on Luna is nothing can get our fan base more unrealistic about a player than group stage Gold Cup games against island nations and January camp. Like they're synonymous. Like every single time there's going to be a couple guys who play well in those games, and people are like, "Is he a starter?" And you're like, let's see him play against like a non-Haiti. And then
usually we say no, but yeah. It's like,
right. Well, we do, but it's like, let's just see a non-Haiti first. And then you see like the Gold Cup knockout, and you're like, you guys saw that Luna isn't quite that good yet. But anyway, my second one, and I want to just add on to some points you made about this guy earlier, was actually Tyler Adams, maybe surprisingly to some people. I think Adams has had some moments with the national team over the last 5 years where people are just like, this guy is locked in and we cannot survive without him, and he must be on the field. And listen, I just don't think that's true anymore. A lot of Adams stuff, right? I do think the best version of us involves Tyler Adams. So let me just say that before everybody freaks out at me. But if we are going to play the style that Poch has tried to play most of the time with him, right? Could be shifting now, we'll see. But if we're going to play a possession-based style, and we are going to play around him guys who, to your point, are not excellent in possession, then Tyler Adams is not very good. And he gets exposed very quickly. And honestly, like, even it feels like transition and wide open moments should be where he thrives. And he's okay. He's really good at times. He also gets out of position at times when we're in these 4v4s or 5v4s, those kind of moments where it's not a block of players. Adams gets out of position all the time and overextends and gives up, puts his center backs on islands, right? If you watch, that kind of happened in the first South Korea goal, I think. Like, he just overextends and gets put on an island. So if we're going to play that style, then Tyler Adams' stock is also way down, similar to Ream for me, right? Is there a world where it's like a basketball team, right? You're going to have, if anybody follows hoops, right? There are players who are really good with the ball. And there are some guys who it's like, you don't ever want them to have the ball unless they have an open shot, an open dunk, but they're really good defenders and they can do other stuff. But you're not going to say, here you go, man, here's the ball. We need you to go create for us, right? In basketball, if you put that kind of guy in that spot, they're going to be terrible. So Adams needs, you mentioned the other midfielder tack. I would go wider. You cannot have fullbacks that are not good with the ball. You cannot have center backs that are not good with the ball. And you cannot have a midfield partner that's not really good with the ball. So if you're going to play possession, he needs to be totally hidden, right? He needs to be the 3-and-D guy in basketball who sits in the corner and waits for the ball, right? And everybody else can do all the complex stuff. But right now, from what I've seen, that's not what we're doing, right? We're asking him to have a big part in build out, and he's not good at that. And everything else he does isn't enough to make up for his weakness in possession. And if you watch him with Bournemouth, to your point, people should watch him with Bournemouth. And I think Johnny's a good example with club as well over the last 2 years, different clubs. They're putting those guys in way better positions to succeed for their skill set than what we have, right? At least what I've seen with Johnny is he's given more of a two-way role. What I see with Tyler is he's not asked to do as much on the ball.
Could it be, Adam? Could it be that maybe clubs do proper scouting before paying 20, 30 million?
Correct. And they know, okay, if I'm getting this guy, I know that I got to use him in this way. And so we got to do more of that. We got to do that with Tyler. But stock down, man. I thought it was a bad camp. I didn't think he was very good in either game.
It was a bad camp, and I talked about like how he needs a player next to him, all that. I wasn't making up excuses. It was literally pointing out that his camp wasn't good, and I was just pointing out how I think it can improve because we see him with Bournemouth, and it's like that's a better version of him. Why is that, right? Because he usually plays well for the national team. So you gave yours. Did I give my 2 stocks down? No, I still have one more, right? Oh, no, I gave 2. I gave Sargent and Luna. My other one was Matt Turner, by the way. I had an extra one. The reason I say Matt Turner was it still felt like him and Freeze were battling it out, but Matt Freeze had a very solid camp, very good camp. And I think right now it's his position to lose. While a few months ago, March, for example, it was Matt Turner's position to lose. It's no longer the case. It's flipped. And now Turner has to be able to get lucky to get an opportunity and stand out. And even if he does, Matt Freeze might still be the starter because Freeze has been rock solid. He's really good on penalty shootouts. We saw that. With his feet, he's been playing it safe. He knows he's not great with it, played it safe. So that's why I think Turner's stock definitely went down. He's most certainly, if there was any doubt, Turner's no longer the starter. If there was any doubt still. Now, one big positive, I'll let you go first. And let's not just say we got the win. I think that's
that wasn't mine, but I did. It's funny that you predicted my joke because my joke was we won a game. How about that? But no, that actually isn't. I was going to go a little deeper for you.
That is a positive, but it's just too lazy.
You called out my joke before I was going to make it because, I mean, just being realistic though, Tack. Like, when was the last time we beat a team who, like you might recognize the country name? It's like it just feels like it's been a while. Because remember, like Gold Cup. Well, I guess we win the semifinal. Who do we beat in the semifinal? Because we tied.
Guatemala.
Oh no, yeah, never mind. So we that's right. But we didn't beat Costa Rica. We tied them, and then we won in PKs. So like we still hadn't beaten anyone in so long. Like 2025, did we even have a win? Like
we beat Jamaica. Oh no, wait, 2025.
Oh, 21. It's the January games, right? It was those, and then it was the loss in Nations League. Then it was getting destroyed in the friendlies.
And the CONCACAF minnows, yeah.
And then it was So anyway, my real one is, I'm wondering if Poch feels like he found something with the, with the five back or three in the back with wing backs, right? And I'm wondering if I don't know if he had that planned. I don't know if he was going to try that out this camp all along, but it seems like at the end of the last game, we were kind of talking before we jumped on live here, Tack, about how many minutes it was. It seems like it was like 30-ish minutes or something like that at the end of the South Korea game. He brings in a third center back. And I was kind of like, what the hell? Why are we keeping Blackman on? And then I kind of realized, oh, okay, he's trying a 3 in the back, like I thought we would just do a sub, and it looked better against, the context you gave, which is totally fair, is like against the backups because Korea, really rotated out hard. But it looked like, okay, that looked like something that gave us some stability. Because before that, we looked kind of lost against South Korea, in my opinion. Like that game felt like it could be 4-0, 5-0. And then all of a sudden we were kind of stable. And a lot of people are online like, see what Christian Roldan brings? He brings the stability. I'm like, all right, guys, like it's the backups. And
they make shit up.
Right. Anyway,
what stability? What does that even mean?
I don't know. It's what everybody said about this last game too. This was the Roldan effect. Anyway, and then you get the back three this whole last game, and once again, TBD what it means. We need to play somebody real. We need our real roster in to figure out what it means. But I do think we need a style shift. And so one big positive for me is like maybe Poch is ready to try some different stuff stylistically out because he seemed pretty dogmatic about how he set us up and how we've tried to play so far, which is, hey, let's possess. And that possession just leads to nothing. And it leads to teams going, cool, we'll counter against you. And if you have any quality at all, we just have gotten destroyed, right? Canada, Mexico, on and on and on. The friendlies in the summer, all those teams kind of did the same thing, which is like, okay, you guys want to try and possess and play through us? Go ahead. And then we know you're going to make a mistake, and then we're off to the races. And so hopefully he's figured out that can't be what we're doing. The 3 in the back is interesting, though, right? I don't love 3 center backs in and of itself, but there's some uncertainty in the midfield. Who's going to be the midfield? So, okay, taking one midfielder off doesn't necessarily like bother me that much. And I think wing backs is clearly a strength of ours, right? I think it helps puts Dest in the best role for him. Our clear-cut starter at left back, Arfsten. No, just kidding. It puts Jedi in a good role too, honestly. Otherwise, we need Jedi to kind of stay home. So I like what it does for them. And then you just got to kind of figure out the front line. And what does it mean for guys like Tillman and Gio if that's a long-term plan? But I don't know. It could be the path. So that's my big positive.
Yeah, I think for me, any positive that I mentioned is 100% reliant on what Pochettino does from here. Yeah. Because I personally thought that the tactical flexibility that he had of testing a back 3 and a 4-2-3-1, if he can translate that to the next camp with better players. So it's really reliant on what he does from here. There were players to me that got exposed that shouldn't be called in again. I thought like Sebastian Berhalter, we've seen enough, right? That's one player. We can mention Luca Del Torre also was kind of a disappointment. I don't think Blackman's good enough. So it depends very much on what Pochettino does from here. The overall camp, if you think about it, if we learn something from it, because the results now don't matter once it ends, right? Because it's a friendly. So I guess it counts for the FIFA rankings, but whatever. We're pot 1 regardless for the World Cup. So it won't really matter too much. It's really dependent on what he does from here, because there were a lot of lessons that were learned. There were things that worked. This is what's important. When you go into a camp and nothing works, it's pretty alarming because you're like, okay, what do I do in the next one? There's no direction. This one, there were signs of things that worked where he can get that and build moving forward. The back 3, Balogun and Pulisic had some good chemistry going on too. Those are 2 players you want them playing close to each other. If he can build off the things that worked and discard or throw away, burn, get rid of the ones that didn't, great. And we're going to know that very soon because the October camp is a lot closer than we think. It's early October, so we're less than a month away. So that's the big positive for me, is that there were positives this camp, unlike a few others that I didn't really see many. Gold Cup, Nations League, I didn't see many positives. Yeah. This one, there were positives. Now let's see what Pochettino does with that. That's the big question.
And to me, I'll just put this out there. I've said it a bunch in the last 2 years. If it's a big positive, if it takes us in a direction where we're creating an identity that will work against better teams. And that's what I think a back 3, if done well, could create an identity that's a little more conservative for us. We don't need to be in a parked bus the whole time, but like we do need to be more conservative. Like right? I mean, us, pressing up, us in possession spread, it puts us in this spot where we're so exposed on the back line, which for us, when you think Dest is back there, right? We have slower center backs who we seem to be playing. Richards is good, but we're going to play a Ream, it seems like, right? Or just more inexperienced guys. Adams is prone to making errors back there. We've given up too many goals in the last year, dude, right? Like, we need to give up less goals. And so we need to move to a style, and maybe that's what the back three is going to do, that allows us to be a little bit more old school with our approach, but we have more dynamic offensive players. So we're not going to look like 2008. We're going to look better in transition if done properly, in my opinion, because we have more dynamic guys in transition. So I'm hoping we're moving that direction, man.
Yeah, and then we can go like to one big negative before we wrap things up here, or like talk about one player we never want to see again. That's one thing we're going to mention soon. To me, one big negative, and this is not really Pochettino or the team's fault. One big negative was Japan not playing their best players, because it felt like against South Korea we didn't play well when we played their best players, and now we beat Japan, but there's still that portion of it that's bugging me of like, what would have happened if they played their best players? Would we be talking with so much confidence when I was like, yeah, there are positives, or would we have gotten demolished? That is bothering me, because when we played the starters of an Asian nation, South Korea, we looked quite bad. Then Pochettino made some changes, and you're like, okay, if Japan played their best players and we played better, we're like, okay, there was improvement. But at the same time, I'm not sure, because of what Japan did. Again, that's not Pochettino or the US's fault. They can't control who the guy plays there. But that's the one negative to me. It felt like we could have been tested in that game. That would have been a really good test. And it turned out to be, maybe it was a good test. We're not so sure. And I think that was the big negative for me.
Yeah. My big negative is that when I think back to the Pochettino era, it's been a mismatch. Though every roster has been like a total mismatch and just kind of like a scattering of what I see as our best team. And we haven't played together. And he made the choice this camp to give MLS guys another run. I think you made the point. It seems like the next two might not be the best timing for them to be in camp. But forget about that, man. Like, can't we do talent eval enough to know that these guys aren't good enough? And that what we need most is we need our best guys playing together as much as possible before the World Cup. And all that tinkering we did, cool. You're missing like half the guys or more that you actually need to do the tinkering with, the formation tinkering, the lineup tinkering. It's just, and so like, what does it all mean? What did any of this mean? That's my negative. Like, what did any of this mean? I have no idea. Like, I don't know.
I guess like we're gonna learn a lot more in October, because I think that's when we're gonna start to get the roster where he's like, I'm only bringing players that I'm looking forward to the World Cup. That's what he implied.
I agree, but my negative is like, we should have been doing that this camp. We don't have that many camps left before the World Cup. Like, it's just a total, I don't get what we're doing. The summer was a missed opportunity in that way. This camp was a missed opportunity. Knock on wood that we're going to start to actually do that in October. We'll see. I'm still skeptical, just being honest. But we need to start to find our group and move forward together, because we haven't done it. These guys haven't played together. Nobody's played together.
Yeah, I think that it's more or less. I think there was one when I said my positive, for you right there, where you're saying is like, it's kind of reliant on what we see going forward. Like, did he learn from this one? Is he picking the right players now? Do we have a team? Is there a plan? Because like we said, it doesn't seem like there is, but maybe there is. They're just not really clear about it.
Maybe we'll be surprised.
Last but not, I do want to just quickly do one shout out here of a negative, is I think we wasted Noah Kai Banks this camp. I know he had a knock against South Korea, but giving 5 minutes to Harrio, you might as well just kept Richards, Blackman, and Ream all the way through. There's no point on giving Harrio minutes. And Noah Kai Banks, it was a good opportunity to test him and see if he was ready, and we didn't. So, but that's all. That's quick on that one. Now, rating this camp from 1 to 10, do you want to go first or want me to go first?
It's a pretty obvious one for me. It's a 5.
I was giving it a 5 too. I'll explain it in a second, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably have a similar explanation. It's like, it's a 5 because I can't really go negative given the roster and everything, and I can't go positive because of the context of the win. it's just very like neutral. That's how it felt. It was like, I don't feel much better and I don't feel much worse than I did coming in. I guess that's a good thing because I've felt worse after every camp recently. And so I guess like we kind of just felt a little bit of the same, and we'll see what it all means, as we've said, in October.
I guess that's progress, because every camp with Pochettino, besides the Jamaica one, we felt worse. This one, we kind of leave it like, like I don't feel worse. I don't feel better, but I don't feel worse. To me, this camp reminds me a little bit, and a little bit different, but it reminds me a little bit of like Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And let me explain to you why. I don't know which direction to go. Like, for example, that movie was very good when it came out, but it was reliant on the other two to actually be a good movie. You know what I'm saying? Like,
100%.
Force Awakens now is dog shit because of the other two movies, Last Jedi and so this camp, I wouldn't say it's good like Force Awakens was at the time, but this camp will have been very good depending on what happens on the next camp. So we're giving it a 5 right now based on what we saw, but depending on what happens there, we can look back at this camp and say, you know what? He tested, it worked. That camp was actually a 9.
Right.
Or it can get worse.
Yeah. A TV show is a good analogy now that you brought up the movies, right? It's like a first season of a TV show, you're like, well, solid. But if it lays the groundwork for like amazing next seasons, you're like, gosh, that's a great
Breaking
season.
Bad. The first season wasn't great.
I was literally thinking Breaking Bad. I was just about to say that, like Breaking Bad, like first couple seasons, you're like, this is a good show. But then it like season 3 and 4, you're like, whoa, it's an amazing show. And those first 2 seasons are really good.
Because they built that. Yes, exactly.
There's a million shows that are the opposite, right? Where it's like, this had a nice start, and then it falls off a cliff, and you're like, that's a terrible show.
Walking Dead. That was one. Yeah. So there you go. Everyone, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Drop a like in this video if you haven't already, and make sure to follow Adam on X. His handle is right below his head. Adam, thank you very much once again.
Thanks, sir.